Saints were obviously in the quarterback market in the draft too. What was your pre-draft stuff with them? Did you have a private, a visit, dirty? What was your contact with the Saints?
Yeah, I met with them multiple times. Coach Moore was great. Coach Nuss was great too. So, definitely had a good relationship with them, during the whole process. And, excited to be on the field.
Is there any chip on your shoulder that they didn't pick you at 9 before the Giants had a chance to?
I think that there's always a chip on your shoulder anytime that, something like that happens. But yeah, I'm just going to go out there and play it to my, as hard as I can.
When you were sitting there in draft night and they were on the clock, did you think you might get a call? Did you have any inkling one way or the other?
Yeah, I felt like my visit with them went good. You kind of have thoughts in your head during the draft of, what options are really realistic. And I definitely felt like that was a place that, could have panned out. But things didn't work out that way.
Now that you're here, how do you think your experience has gone so far with the Giants?
I love it here. There's not a place that I'd rather be. I love just how passionate people are here outside of the facility, within the facility, and I like kind of just like the attitude the East Coasters have, and it's a lot of fun. So I've loved it.
What stood out on tape that you want to improve on when you watch?
I think just be a little bit cleaner with my footwork, in the pocket. Be a little, just be a little quicker in my progressions maybe, and there's definitely a few sacks that I felt like I could have got the ball out of my hand and probably just thrown away. So those are kind of things that stood out to me.
How quickly did you have to go from being bummed about Malik injury to sort of moving to what life's going to be like after him? What do you think it's going to be like now not having Malik out there?
Yeah, well, you definitely can't just replace a player like that. I mean, he's one of one. Just his talent and his ability. But we got a lot of good guys on our team, and it was definitely really hard. I think it's hard. Just when you see somebody that you really respect, you have a really good friendship and all that, go down. And during the game, it definitely hit us emotionally just as a team. So our prayers are with him, and we're constantly just trying to look after him and during this time. But we got a lot of good guys and guys who are going to be willing to step up, and that they have to step up. So just going into this next game, just trying to get on the same page with everybody and being able to execute at the highest level.
Jack, did you play many domes in college?
I play what?
Many dome stadiums in college?
Yeah, I did.
Well, can you lean on that experience going into the Superdome, or is this a whole different experience to kind of prepare for that?
I mean, every college has an indoor facility too, so a lot of practices, especially at Ole Miss, thrown in there, and then had several games where I played indoors, especially bowl games. So the ball comes out better in those environments. So just excited for it.
As far as the crowd, though, how is that kind of like different as far as just compared to like outdoor for you at least?
I mean, I feel like I played in the SEC, so I've played in a lot of really loud places. Obviously, this one that we're walking into is notoriously one of the loudest in the league. So we got to definitely be prepared and have to communicate at the best of our ability. We try to do a really good job of practice of creating sound, and not all the time can you implement exactly what it's going to be like, but you just try to prepare that way.
How did you feel the day after the game? And did you go back, when you went back and looked, did you think, okay, there's some spots where maybe I should take this hit, or how did you sort of look at that afterwards?
I felt like really just some of the sacks that I took were kind of the biggest ones hit-wise that I felt like I could have avoided. I felt like in the open field, a lot of them were on third down, so I'm not going to slide before the sticks. I'm going to try to get the first down. So I don't really regret any of those decisions that I made.
What about the stiff arm at the end of that one? Right?
Yeah, maybe that's not the smartest with my throwing hand. I didn't really like the way he was looking at me. So.
What was your physical recovery like the last couple of days? Like, how different was it compared to other weeks?
I mean, I ran the ball a lot in college, so there was definitely times in college where my body, felt it after games, and I think anytime it's just football, so you're not always going to feel 100%, after the game. But we have a really good training staff here. We have a lot of assets that we can use to make sure our bodies are ready for next week. So these last few days have been really crucial for me, and and making sure that I'm on the right track and feeling 100% for Sunday.
What about the tape on, and now you got the tights on? Like, is that something you're just managing, or?
Yeah, I mean, I always wear compression sleeves, on my legs and whatnot. So that hasn't really changed anything. But I'll be good to go.
What have the last few days been like for you, just in life? Just after that game and a lot of focus on you and attention. How have you handled that?
Yeah, it was good to have my family here. So it was fun to spend a little bit of time with them. Obviously, it's a better feeling walking out each week to a win. So I feel like that was good for the locker room and for the guys. But at the same time, it was just one game, so we got a long season, and that's just kind of how I view it. Don't make it anything bigger than what it is. It was just one game, and our mindset has to be to win every game that we play.
So how do you make it 2 games?
Just have the same mindset each and every week. We got to be able to have the competitive mindset, to expect to win, and just try to create situations where maybe we face a little bit of adversity in practice, and just go through that. But I think it's really just the habits that you try to create each and every day to build that momentum, and being able to if you make a mistake, clean it up on the very next play and get things right.
Jaxson, some of the guys last week were saying just getting to know how you like to prepare for a game. Some of the receivers were talking about your calls that you got you called that night. Hey, what do you think about this? I'm curious that after Sunday, did it kind of validate your preparation going into week 2? Do you think that the guys now expect what they saw from you last week rather than wondering what they're going to get from you next week?
Yeah, I think that it was just, it was a good week for us to kind of get used to how, everybody on the offensive side prepares and communicates with one another. And, that's one thing that I really take, accountability for, is making sure that everybody's on the exact same page of really just trying to see the vision and see from my perspective, and I want to see from their perspective. So it's constant communication throughout the day and just from watching film. And, I think that, we have a lot of really mature guys who prepare the right way. So, it's definitely, a good spot to be in when we can communicate.
What's your relationship like with Theo, and what kind of confidence do you have in him?
Yeah, I love Theo. He's a stud. He's a guy that comes to work every single day and, works at his craft, very diligently and consistently. So, when you see a guy like that, you definitely have a ton of respect for him, and we build a really good, relationship off the field as well. So, I'm just excited for him and I's, relationship to continue to grow, and he's going to make a lot of really big plays for us this year.
What was your phone like after the game, and like, what have these last few days been like in handling all the other stuff that comes with it?
I try to just stay off of it. I mean, like I said, my parents were in town, so I was able to just spend time with them, and I think that was really just my focus. And when you're a long way from home and you don't really get to see them a lot, it's good to have them. So I haven't really checked it that much, to be honest.
Jaxson, for you, how do you balance carrying over the momentum of the first win for the team into the next game with staying sharp and focused on the next game?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was just one game. We have to, our expectation and thought process is to win every game that we step in. So you can't make it anything bigger than what it is, and you got to prepare it the right way. And I think that's kind of been my message to everybody in the locker room. We got to come to compete every single day.